The space station floated silently above the new planet, a shining ring of metal and glass orbiting a world that humans had only recently begun to explore. Its docking bays hummed with activity, shuttles landing and taking off in a steady rhythm. Cargo containers rolled along moving platforms, while scientists and engineers hurried between laboratories, their footsteps echoing softly in the wide corridors. Amid the organized chaos, Captain Elias Mercer stepped off his shuttle and took a deep breath. He had been here before, of course. The station was familiar, yet today felt different. Something tugged at him, a subtle unease that refused to leave. Perhaps it was the planet below, glowing faintly in shades of green and blue through the station's observation windows. Or perhaps it was the artifact, the strange object the research team had recovered from the surface, waiting for him just down the hall. Elias was known for his skill in the field. He had flown countless missions, commanded difficult landings, and handled situations that would have broken others. Yet as he walked through the corridors, he felt strangely out of place. Scientists were not soldiers. Engineers were not tacticians. And in the center of it all, Dr. Lyra Venn waited. Lyra was a xenobiologist, brilliant in ways that made Elias feel small by comparison. Her reputation preceded her. She had spent years studying alien life forms, deciphering their behaviors and understanding their worlds. She had an uncanny ability to notice patterns no one else could see, to predict outcomes before they happened. And yet, despite all her accomplishments, she carried herself with calm humility. She didn't boast. She simply observed, listened, and acted when necessary. When Elias entered the laboratory where Lyra worked, he found her standing before a console, eyes fixed on the artifact. The object was unlike anything he had ever seen. It hovered slightly above the table, glowing faintly with a light that shifted in color. Its surface was smooth, yet patterned with strange geometric designs that seemed to pulse in time with the station's energy flow. "Captain Mercer," Lyra said without turning. Her voice was soft but carried an authority that made him straighten instinctively. "I was wondering when you'd arrive." Elias hesitated. He had met many brilliant minds before, but there was something in Lyra's presence that made him aware of every flaw in his own thinking. He forced a casual tone, though his chest tightened slightly. "I had to make sure the shuttle landed safely. You know how spaceports can be." Lyra finally looked at him, her gaze calm and steady. "I'm more concerned with what you'll do once you're here. The artifact is unusual. I need someone who can handle unexpected situations." Elias shifted his weight. "And you think I'm that someone?" His voice carried a mix of pride and insecurity. He had faced danger countless times, but standing here, next to a mind like Lyra's, he felt ordinary, almost painfully ordinary. "Why would you want someone like me?" The words left him before he could stop them. There was a brief pause, and he thought he had made a mistake. Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, but then she smiled. Not a smile of mockery, but one of understanding. "You'll see soon enough," she said, turning back to the console. "Words won't answer that question. Actions will." Elias frowned. "Actions?" She nodded. "The artifact is not just an object. It responds, it observes, it tests, and sometimes it chooses. I need to know if humans are ready for what it can offer." He stepped closer, trying to understand. "Chooses, like, picks one of us?" Lyra's fingers danced across the console, and the artifact pulsed more brightly. "Not in a way you would recognize immediately. It evaluates qualities humans often overlook: courage, empathy, instinct. Those things cannot be measured by tests or simulations alone. You might think you are ordinary, Captain, but ordinary humans often surprise me." Elias swallowed. The words struck him deeper than any battle ever could. He had always relied on skill, strategy, and training. He had never thought much about his personal qualities, the way he approached the world when no one was watching. Now Lyra implied that these very qualities might be more important than any tactical skill he possessed. "Do you really think I can—" He stopped, unsure how to phrase his doubts without sounding weak. Lyra looked at him again, her expression gentle. "I do, but not because of what you've done. Because of what you are willing to do when it matters most." Elias felt a strange mix of pride and anxiety. He had faced countless crises in space, but he had never been evaluated in this way. Not for skill, not for bravery in combat, but for something deeper, something human. Before he could respond, Lyra pressed a sequence on the console. The artifact reacted immediately, its glow intensifying. Images flashed across the laboratory's holographic displays. Landscapes of alien worlds, creatures moving with intelligence, simulations of complex ecosystems. The artifact seemed alive, observing the team, responding to the presence of humans in the room. Elias leaned forward, trying to comprehend what he saw. Each image felt purposeful, almost communicative, and yet he couldn't make sense of it. How could an object show intelligence in this way? Lyra's voice broke his concentration. It's testing reactions. Watch carefully. Suddenly, a section of the laboratory floor opened, revealing a small alien creature trapped inside a containment field. It was curious and cautious, its multifaceted eyes observing the humans with something that resembled wariness, or perhaps recognition. Elias instinctively reached for the controls to release it, but Lyra raised a hand. Don't interfere yet, she instructed. See how it reacts to you. Elias froze. The creature shifted slightly, its gaze locking onto him. In that moment, he felt something profound, a recognition that went beyond logic, a subtle connection between species that defied explanation. He didn't know what to do, yet something inside him urged caution and respect. Then, almost instinctively, he stepped closer, not with aggression, but with a protective awareness. The creature twitched nervously, and he spoke softly, not expecting it to understand. It's okay. No harm will come to you. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. Good. That's exactly the kind of instinct the artifact observes. Not just what you do, but why you do it. Elias felt a rush of both pride and confusion. He had acted without thinking strategically, without following protocol. Yet that action might matter more than any plan he had ever devised in battle. Hours passed in a blur of observation and study. The artifact pulsed, glowed, and occasionally emitted soft sounds that resonated like whispers in the room. Elias followed Lyra through every experiment, every test, learning to notice small details he had never considered. Subtle patterns in the creature's movements, the way light reflected off the artifact, the faint vibrations in the floor that indicated energy flows. By the end of the day, he was exhausted yet more aware of himself than he had been in years. Lyra glanced at him, smiling faintly. You'll understand soon, she said. The artifact doesn't just test us. It teaches us. And sometimes it teaches us about ourselves. Elias sat back, staring at the glowing object. He still felt ordinary. He still doubted himself. Yet for the first time, he wondered if perhaps ordinary humans were capable of extraordinary things. Things that no machine, no calculation, no alien intelligence could predict. As the station's artificial lights dimmed for the night cycle, Elias walked to the observation window and looked down at the planet below. He thought of the strange artifact, the alien creature, and Lyra's calm confidence, and despite his doubts, he felt a spark of something new, possibility. He didn't know what the artifact would demand of him tomorrow, or the day after. He didn't know what tests awaited, or what challenges would arise. But for the first time in a long while, he was ready to face them, not just because of duty, but because he wanted to understand what made humans truly special. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that Lyra had seen it too. The spark, the instinct, the courage that he had yet to fully realize. Why would you want someone like me? He whispered to himself, echoing the question he had asked Lyra hours earlier. Her answer had not come in words, yet it was clear. The answer was in the moments, the choices, the instinctive actions that defined him. And for the first time, Elias felt that perhaps ordinary humans were not so ordinary after all. The artifact pulsed softly, as if acknowledging him, and the first day of their encounter drew to a close. Tomorrow would bring new tests, new discoveries, and perhaps new understanding. For now, Elias allowed himself to hope, and to wonder what it truly meant to be human. The morning light of the space station filtered through the observation windows, casting pale streaks across the laboratory. Captain Elias Mercer had barely slept. Thoughts of the artifact, of the alien creature, and of Dr. Lyra Venn's calm, knowing gaze replayed endlessly in his mind. Today, he knew, would be different. Today, he would leave the station and descend to the planet's surface for the first time in the presence of the artifact. Lyra was already waiting in the landing bay, her hair tied neatly back, a tablet in her hand. The soft hum of the docking area and the distant calls of engineers barely registered to her as she focused on her preparations. Elias approached cautiously, trying to steady his nerves. You're early, he said, forcing a casual tone. I like to be prepared, Lyra replied, her voice calm, yet firm. The planet is not a laboratory. Everything changes. The terrain, the creatures, even the atmosphere. We need to observe carefully and act wisely. Elias nodded, feeling the familiar tug of doubt. He had landed on dangerous worlds before, navigated hostile conditions, and faced creatures that could kill in an instant. But somehow this felt different. He was not just dealing with survival now. He was being tested in ways he could not yet understand. The shuttle hummed as they descended through the planet's thin atmosphere. Outside, the landscape was breathtaking. Rolling hills of blue-green vegetation stretched as far as the eye could see, and strange, luminous plants glimmered in the soft light. Unusual shapes moved between the trees, distant forms that hinted at life unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Lyra pointed to one of the distant movements. "See that?" she asked. "Those are native creatures. They are intelligent in their own way. Watch how they move, how they interact. Notice patterns, but do not interfere." Elias followed her gaze. The creatures were small but agile, moving in groups with clear coordination. Something about the way they paused, how they seemed to study the humans in the shuttle, made his pulse quicken. "Why do you let them observe us?" he asked. "Wouldn't it be safer to keep our distance?" Lyra shook her head. "Observation is part of understanding. We cannot learn by hiding, and these creatures are not hostile, not yet. They respond to our presence, to our choices. That is the test." When the shuttle landed softly on a clearing, Elias felt the weight of the alien world beneath him. The ground was firm, yet strange patterns of bioluminescence ran like veins through the soil. The air smelled different, faintly sweet, yet clean and breathable. He could feel the artifact, safely stored in the shuttle's containment unit, pulsing with soft energy, as if sensing the planet's life force. Lyra gestured toward the edge of the clearing. "Follow me. Stay alert. And remember, we are here to learn, not to dominate." Elias nodded. He followed her, boots crunching on the strange ground. Every sound, every movement of the local wildlife seemed amplified. He could hear distant calls, rustling leaves, and the faint hum of energy from the artifact. His senses sharpened without him realizing it. After a few minutes, they reached a grove where the native creatures were gathering. They were curious, small, with sleek bodies and multifaceted eyes that reflected the sunlight in dazzling patterns. Elias froze. He had never seen anything like them. Lyra knelt slightly, speaking softly. "Watch them. Notice how they react to each other, to us. Don't make sudden movements. Let them approach if they wish." One of the creatures stepped closer, tilting its head as it studied Elias. His heart raced, and instinctively, he took a slow step back. The creature did not move away. Instead, it stayed, observing him. Elias raised a hand cautiously, unsure what to do. Lyra watched him closely. "Do not act out of fear. Show calm, show respect. That is what matters." Elias inhaled deeply and lowered his hand. Slowly, deliberately, he knelt, lowering his height to match the creature's. His movement was careful, unthreatening. The creature studied him for a long moment, then inched closer, brushing a small appendage against his hand. Lyra's lips curved in a faint smile. "Good. That instinct, that choice. You are showing qualities the artifact is designed to observe. Courage, patience, empathy, not brute strength, not skill with weapons, but human qualities." Elias blinked. He had acted without thinking, yet somehow that action mattered more than all the careful strategies he had ever planned in battle. The realization made him feel both humbled and exhilarated. They continued deeper into the grove. Every step revealed new forms of life, each more extraordinary than the last. Elias noticed subtle patterns. The way the creatures moved, the rhythm of the flora, the gentle hum that seemed to resonate from the planet itself. He began to understand what Lyra had been teaching all along. Observation was more than seeing. It was understanding, connecting, and responding. Suddenly, a louder noise echoed from the trees. A larger creature emerged, its size intimidating, yet its movements cautious. Elias instinctively stepped in front of Lyra, placing himself between her and the creature. His hand hovered near his utility belt, ready to react if necessary. Lyra touched his arm gently. "Do not act on instinct alone. Observe first. Respond second." Elias froze, watching the larger creature. It paused, assessing them, then slowly lowered its head. The smaller creatures in the grove scattered slightly, but the larger one remained calm, responding to the human's measured presence. Elias exhaled slowly, realizing that his instincts had guided him correctly. But it was his restraint, his observation, and his calm that truly mattered. The artifact, stored in its unit nearby, pulsed brightly. Elias felt its energy brush against him, subtle yet undeniable. It was as if the artifact acknowledged his choices, recognizing the human qualities he had displayed. After hours of careful observation, Lyra finally spoke. The artifact is responding positively, but this is only the beginning. There are deeper tests ahead. The world itself will challenge us, and the choices we make will matter more than our knowledge or tools. Elias nodded, feeling both excitement and apprehension. He had faced dangerous worlds before, but never one where the test was not just survival, but understanding, the ability to connect with life, to act with courage and empathy when it mattered most. As they prepared to return to the shuttle, a sudden tremor shook the ground. Trees swayed and distant rocks tumbled down a slope. The larger creature growled, a sound that resonated deep in Elias's chest. "Stay calm," Lyra said, her voice steady. "Assess the situation first." Elias looked around. The tremor had revealed a fissure opening in the ground, and a portion of the grove was at risk. Without thinking, he moved to shield Lyra, placing himself between her and the unstable ground. He grabbed a nearby branch, using it to stabilize himself and help her maintain balance. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, but she did not speak. She simply observed, letting him act. Elias felt a rush of clarity. In moments like these, human instincts, courage, and presence of mind were more important than any pre-planned strategy. The tremor subsided, and the creatures cautiously returned to their positions. Elias straightened, breathing heavily but steady. Lyra stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "That," she said softly, "was exactly what the artifact wants to see. Not just skill, not just bravery, but decisiveness, protection, and care for others." Elias felt a warmth of pride mixed with humility. He had acted instinctively, yet with reason and care. For the first time, he began to see the truth in Lyra's words. Human qualities. Ordinary and daily life could be extraordinary when applied with awareness and courage. As they returned to the shuttle, Elias glanced at Lyra. Her expression was unreadable, yet he sensed approval. He knew the artifact had observed him, recorded his choices, and perhaps acknowledged his potential. Inside the shuttle, as they lifted off from the planet, Elias finally allowed himself to speak. "Lyra, I think I understand now. The artifact isn't testing our strength or knowledge. It's testing who we are, how we act, what we value." Lyra nodded, her eyes thoughtful. "Exactly. And it is learning from us as much as we are learning from it. Humanity has qualities that no calculation or machine can predict. Courage, empathy, intuition. These are what make humans special." Elias leaned back, staring out the window at the shrinking planet below. He still had much to learn. The artifact would present challenges, tests that he could not yet imagine, but for the first time he felt capable. For the first time he saw that humans, even ordinary ones like himself, had a potential that was truly extraordinary. And somewhere deep inside, he felt a spark of anticipation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new encounters, and perhaps new understanding, but he was ready. Not just because of skill or training, but because he was human, and humans had a way of rising to the occasion when it truly mattered. The shuttle hummed quietly as it returned to the station. Elias closed his eyes briefly, letting the weight of the day sink in. He had been tested, observed, and challenged. And yet, he had also discovered something profound. The artifact was not just a measure of humans, it was a mirror, reflecting their potential, their courage, and their capacity to act with wisdom and heart. When he opened his eyes, Lyra was watching him, a faint smile on her lips. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "the tests will be more complex. But I have no doubt you are ready." Elias nodded, a small smile forming on his face. For the first time, he truly believed it. The next morning, the space station buzzed with anticipation. Captain Elias Mercer moved through the corridors with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt before. Today, Lyra had promised, the artifact's purpose would become clearer. His mind raced with questions. Why had the artifact chosen to respond to humans in the way it had? What did it see in him in all of humanity? And most importantly, what did it want to teach them? Lyra was already waiting in the laboratory, analyzing data from the previous day's observations. The alien creature and its companions had returned to the station's containment simulation for further study, but the artifact itself hummed with subtle energy, as if impatient to reveal more. "Good morning, Captain," Lyra greeted him, her tone calm but carrying a hint of excitement. "Today you will see what the artifact is truly capable of." Elias raised an eyebrow. "And you think I'm ready for it?" Lyra smiled faintly. "It doesn't ask for readiness. It only observes, evaluates, and responds. You already demonstrated qualities it values. Today it will show you why." The team gathered around the artifact. Lyra tapped the console and the object began to glow more intensely than before. The geometric patterns on its surface shifted, forming new shapes as if trying to communicate something beyond words. Holographic projections flickered to life around them. Elias leaned forward, eyes wide. The projections showed worlds, cities, landscapes, and strange life forms. At first it seemed random, chaotic even, but as he watched, he noticed patterns emerging. Connections between species, ecosystems, and civilizations formed, revealing a complex web of intelligence. Lyra's voice cut through his awe. "This artifact is more than a tool or a container. It is a repository of knowledge from countless civilizations across the galaxy. It observes, records, and evaluates. Every species it encounters is measured not just for survival, but for potential. And it has chosen to study humans. Carefully." Elias's mind spun. "Chosen humans? Why us? We're just people, ordinary humans. What could make us special?" Lyra turned to him, her gaze steady. "It's not raw intelligence, skill, or strength that matters. It is qualities that define sentient life. Courage, empathy, creativity, and the ability to rise above fear or instinct when it counts. You demonstrated that yesterday. The artifact recognized human potential." Elias felt a mix of pride and disbelief. He had acted instinctively, yes, but he had always thought of himself as just another soldier, another human among millions, and yet somehow the artifact saw something more. The projections shifted, revealing simulations of humanity's future. Cities thrived and collapsed, wars flared and ended, discoveries flourished and failed. Some outcomes were catastrophic, showing humanity's flaws and limits. Others were astonishing. Humans working together, innovating, exploring the galaxy, creating bonds that transcended planets and species. "It can see possible futures," Elias murmured. "Everything we could become, or fail to become." "Yes," Lyra said softly. "It is not predicting exact events. It is observing probabilities. And it evaluates how humans respond to challenges, how we act, what we value, what choices we make under pressure." Elias looked at her, understanding dawning. "So it's testing us, not for what we can destroy, but for what we can build, protect, and achieve?" Lyra nodded. "Exactly. And it's learning from us as much as we are learning from it. Human qualities are unpredictable, unique. No machine, no alien intelligence, no pattern can fully measure what humans are capable of. That is why it responds to instinct, courage, empathy. The very things that often go unnoticed." Elias felt a strange warmth in his chest. For the first time, he realized that being human meant more than survival or skill. It meant potential, the ability to act rightly, to inspire, and to grow beyond limitations. Before he could speak further, the artifact's glow intensified. The holographic projections coalesced into a three-dimensional map of the planet below, highlighting regions with strange energy readings. Some areas were glowing brightly, others dim, as if the planet itself were alive and reacting to their presence. Lyra gestured to the map. "These anomalies indicate that the planet is more than it seems. The artifact reacts to its life forms, its energy flows, its ecosystems. It tests not only humans, but the harmony between humans and this world. Tomorrow we will explore one of these zones. It will present a challenge that cannot be solved with skill alone. It will demand understanding, patience, and insight." Elias felt a surge of anticipation. "A challenge? From the planet itself?" "Yes, and from the artifact," Lyra confirmed. "It will observe our choices, our reactions, and it will respond accordingly." Elias thought of the alien creatures they had observed yesterday. He realized that the test would not be about dominance or control, but about coexistence, about understanding life forms that were very different from humans. That was the kind of challenge he had never faced, one that went beyond training or experience. Lyra tapped a few commands on her tablet, and the artifact pulsed again. A new projection appeared. a simulation of humans encountering alien intelligence on a distant world. Some humans reacted with fear or aggression, causing conflict and failure. Others approached with curiosity, empathy, and respect, leading to alliances and understanding. Elias studied the images, feeling the weight of the lesson. So, the choices we make, how we act in these situations, it matters. Even small actions can change everything. Exactly, Lyra said. The artifact does not care about perfection. It cares about intention, adaptability, and understanding. Humans are unpredictable, but that unpredictability can be a strength. Elias reflected on the previous day. The small creature approaching him, the instinctive protection he had shown, the restraint he had practiced. All of it had mattered. All of it had been observed, and all of it had demonstrated human qualities that no simulation or calculation could replicate. Lyra noticed his thoughtful expression and placed a hand on his shoulder. You see, Elias, it's not about being perfect. It's about being human. The artifact recognizes that humans have a unique way of rising to the occasion, of making choices that define not only themselves but their species. Elias nodded slowly. I think I understand. A little, but why me? Why show me all of this? Why choose a human like me? Lyra's eyes softened. Because humans have potential in ways even we cannot fully measure. You acted with instinct, courage, and empathy yesterday. Those qualities, ordinary in daily life, are extraordinary in moments of challenge. The artifact sees it, I see it, and someday you will see it yourself. Elias felt a mixture of pride, humility, and curiosity. For the first time, he understood that his value was not just in skill or experience, but in how he chose to act when it truly mattered. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but their unpredictability was also a source of creativity, courage, and hope. Lyra continued, Tomorrow, the artifact will present a more direct challenge. It will require both of us to observe, respond, and make choices that affect not only ourselves, but the creatures of this planet. It will test how well we can understand life beyond our own. And it will observe you, Elias, not for failure, but for potential. Elias exhaled slowly. The weight of responsibility pressed on him, but it was different from fear. It was a weight born of possibility, of discovery, of the chance to prove that humans could rise to challenges that no calculation or intelligence could predict. He looked at the artifact once more. Its glow seemed softer now, almost inviting. It was not a machine, not simply a repository of knowledge. It was a teacher, a mirror, a guide, revealing potential, testing courage, and showing the possibilities of what humans could become. As the day ended, Elias felt a sense of calm determination. He was beginning to understand the message. Humans were not measured by skill alone, but by heart, instinct, and choice. The artifact responded to those qualities because they were rare, unpredictable, and powerful. And in that moment, Elias realized that his actions, his choices, and his humanity mattered more than he had ever imagined. When he turned to Lyra, she was watching him with quiet pride. Tomorrow, she said softly, the real test begins. But you are ready, Elias, you already are. Elias nodded, a small smile forming on his lips. He still had doubts, still had fears, but now they were tempered by understanding. Humans had a way of rising to the occasion, of turning ordinary qualities into extraordinary outcomes, and he, like all humans, had the potential to do just that. As he left the laboratory, Elias looked out at the planet below. Its forests, rivers, and glowing landscapes stretched endlessly, filled with life waiting to be understood. And somewhere deep inside he felt a spark of anticipation, of courage, and of purpose. The artifact had revealed a truth. Being human was not about perfection. It was about potential, and for the first time Elias was ready to see just how far that potential could go. The shuttle descended into the glowing valley with careful precision, its engines humming quietly against the alien wind. Captain Elias Mercer felt a familiar tension coil in his chest. This was not a simple exploration mission. This was a test, one that would push him, Lyra, and the human qualities they were beginning to understand to the limit. Lyra sat beside him, reviewing readings from the artifact on her tablet. The glow of the device seemed brighter today, its pulses faster, as though sensing the heightened energy of the valley below. Elias glanced at it. He had grown used to the artifact's subtle influence, its quiet, almost imperceptible guidance. Yet even now its full purpose remained a mystery, and that uncertainty both unnerved and excited him. "This zone is unique," Lyra said, her voice calm but focused. "The planet itself seems to respond to presence here. The artifact is watching how we adapt, how we make decisions under pressure, and how we treat the life forms we encounter. Remember, Elias, this is not about brute strength. It is about awareness, empathy, and courage." Elias nodded, gripping the armrest of his seat. He had understood the lesson so far, but a deep part of him knew that understanding alone would not be enough. Action would be required, and action carried risk. When the shuttle touched down, the valley stretched before them like a living painting. Trees glowed faintly with bioluminescence, and the air shimmered with the energy radiating from the artifact's nearby presence. Strange plants moved slightly as if sensing them, and small creatures peeked cautiously from hidden spaces. Elias and Lyra stepped out, each footfall making a soft crunch against the alien soil. Lyra pointed to a path that led deeper into the valley. "Follow me and keep your focus. Observe, respond, and do not act recklessly. The planet will present challenges, and the artifact will note every choice you make." The first challenge came quickly. As they moved along the path, a sudden tremor shook the ground beneath them. Trees swayed violently, and a deep rumbling echoed through the valley. Small rocks tumbled from the cliffs above, and the path ahead seemed unstable. Elias's instincts took over. He quickly assessed the danger. The tremor could worsen, and loose stones could fall at any moment. Without hesitation, he moved to shield Lyra, placing himself between her and the unstable ground. His hand steadied her arm, guiding her to a safer spot. "Good," Lyra said, her voice calm but impressed. "Observe first, act second, but when action is needed, do not hesitate." The tremor subsided, leaving them shaken but unharmed. Elias took a deep breath, his heart pounding. The artifact pulsed brightly nearby, almost like an acknowledgement. He realized then that the tests were becoming more direct, more urgent. The artifact was not merely observing. They were being measured under real conditions that demanded instinct, judgment, and courage. As they continued, the valley presented new challenges. A rushing river blocked their path, its waters glowing faintly with the planet's energy. Small bioluminescent creatures moved along its surface, hopping from stone to stone. Elias studied the current, estimating the safest route across. "This is not about rushing," Lyra said softly, reading his hesitation. "Think, observe. The artifact values judgment, not speed." Elias nodded and chose a careful path, testing each stone before stepping. The creatures around him seemed to watch, responding to his movements. When he finally reached the other side, he looked back at Lyra, who was following closely, and realized that the smallest choices, the balance of a step, the pause before action, carried weight beyond the obvious. Hours passed, each obstacle testing them in different ways. A narrow cliff path, a sudden electrical storm caused by the planet's atmospheric energy, and a dense grove filled with creatures that were intelligent yet wary. Each time, Elias relied on instincts shaped by experience, but tempered by observation, patience, and empathy. At one point, a larger creature emerged from the grove, blocking their path. Its size was imposing, and its gaze locked onto Elias with something that resembled curiosity mixed with caution. His first instinct was to step back to prepare for defense, but he remembered Lyra's words and the lessons of the artifact. Slowly he knelt, lowering himself to appear non-threatening. He spoke softly, instinctively, words he did not expect the creature to understand. "We mean no harm." The creature paused, its eyes scanning his expression and body language. Then, as if satisfied, it slowly moved aside, allowing them to continue. Elias exhaled in relief, realizing that courage alone was not enough. Understanding, empathy, and calm judgment mattered equally. As the day wore on, the valley began to shift. The terrain became uneven, glowing fissures opening in the ground, releasing bursts of energy. The artifact pulsed with intensity, almost as if guiding them through the safest paths while simultaneously observing how they responded to danger. Suddenly, a large fissure split the ground near them, sending a shockwave through the valley. Elias acted instinctively, grabbing Lyra and pulling her out of harm's way. Loose rocks fell and the ground beneath them trembled. The creatures scattered, retreating to safer areas. Lyra looked at him, eyes wide but calm. You did well, she said. Not just in protecting me, but in your awareness of the environment. The artifact observes not just bravery, but thoughtful action. Elias felt his chest tighten. The stakes were higher than anything he had faced in battle. Here in an alien world with the artifact observing, his choices carried meaning far beyond survival. They carried meaning for understanding, for learning, and for potential. As they continued, they reached the center of the valley, a clearing dominated by a massive, glowing tree-like organism. Its branches stretched high, pulsing with energy, and its roots intertwined with the very ground they stood on. The air was thick with the planet's energy, and the artifact's glow intensified. Lyra approached the tree, placing her hand on its trunk. This is the core of the planet's energy, she said. It responds to life, to thought, and to action. The artifact will test us here most directly. Elias, this is where your choices will matter most. A sudden tremor shook the ground again, more intense than before. Roots shifted, and the energy around them surged, creating waves that knocked them off balance. Elias immediately reached out, steadying Lyra and shielding her from the strongest bursts. This is it, Lyra said, her voice calm despite the chaos. Your actions now will be observed and remembered. Do not panic. Observe, respond, and trust yourself. Elias's mind raced, but he focused on the moment. He noticed patterns in the energy bursts, the way the roots moved, the subtle cues from the glowing branches. He acted deliberately, guiding Lyra, adjusting his position, and protecting the creatures nearby who had followed them into the clearing. Minutes passed like hours. Each movement, each decision carried weight. Elias realized that the artifact was testing more than courage. It was testing leadership, presence of mind, empathy, and the ability to adapt. Ordinary qualities, applied wisely, became extraordinary under pressure. Finally, the energy subsided. The valley grew quiet, the fissures closing, the glowing tree returning to a steady, calm pulse. The creatures cautiously returned, and the artifact's glow softened, as if signaling approval. Lyra looked at Elias, a faint smile on her lips. You see now, she said softly, that the artifact does not judge by skill alone. It observes how humans act when it truly matters. Courage, empathy, judgment, care. These are the qualities that define human potential. Elias exhaled, exhausted but exhilarated. He had acted instinctively, yes, but with awareness, thought, and care. For the first time, he understood the lesson fully. Being human was not about perfection, but about choices, how one acted in moments of challenge, how one balanced instinct with understanding. As they made their way back to the shuttle, Elias finally allowed himself to speak. Lyra, I understand now. The artifact, it's not just testing us. It's showing us what we are capable of. Not just as individuals, but as humans. Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting quiet pride. Exactly. And tomorrow, we will learn even more. The artifact's purpose is not simply observation. It is guidance. It is reflection. It is recognition. And it has recognized you, Elias, not for perfection, but for what makes humans special. Elias glanced at the glowing valley, at the creatures moving carefully among the glowing trees, at the artifact pulsing softly nearby. A sense of calm determination filled him. He had been tested, challenged, and observed, and yet he had also discovered something profound. Ordinary human qualities, when applied with thought and courage, could achieve extraordinary results. The shuttle lifted off, carrying them back to the space station. Elias watched the valley shrink below them, its glowing patterns fading into the distance. He thought of the day's challenges, of the choices he had made, and of the artifact's quiet approval. For the first time, he truly understood that humans, even ordinary ones, could rise to occasions that no machine, calculation, or alien intelligence could predict. Lyra's voice broke through his thoughts. Tomorrow we will face the artifact's final test here. It will challenge not only our understanding, but our judgment, courage, and humanity itself. Are you ready? Elias smiled faintly. I am, he said, and for the first time he felt that he truly was. The artifact pulsed gently as if acknowledging his words. Elias realized that humanity's journey among the stars was just beginning, and that the morning sun, or what passed for sunlight on this alien world, cast a soft glow over the valley. Captain Elias Mercer and Dr. Lyra Venn stood side by side, gazing at the glowing terrain below. Today they would face the artifact's final test. Elias's heart thumped in his chest. He had faced challenges before, on Earth, in battles across planets, and in hostile conditions. But this test was unlike any other. This time it wasn't about skill, strategy, or weapons. It was about understanding, courage, and being human. Lyra glanced at him, her expression calm yet encouraging. "Elias," she said softly, "everything we have done until now has prepared us for this. But this test, it will push you in ways you cannot predict. You will have to rely on everything you are, not just what you know." Elias swallowed hard. The lessons of the past days, the instinctive protection of creatures, careful observation, patience under pressure, flashed through his mind. He nodded, trying to steady himself. "I'm ready," he said, though part of him still wondered if that was true. The artifact pulsed brightly, hovering slightly above the ground. Its glow spread across the valley, casting patterns that shimmered and moved like living water. Elias felt a subtle hum resonate through his body, a quiet reminder that the artifact was observing everything, his thoughts, his actions, and the choices he would make. Lyra stepped forward and tapped her tablet. Holographic images expanded from the artifact, showing possible outcomes: failure, success, disaster, and triumph. Elias studied the projections. Unlike before, this time he noticed that the images reacted to his gaze, shifting slightly depending on where he looked and what he focused on. The artifact was no longer just observing, they were part of the test. Suddenly the valley shivered. A fissure opened near their path, releasing a surge of energy that threatened to knock them off balance. Elias instinctively stepped forward, shielding Lyra and the small creatures that had followed them into the clearing. His heart raced, but he focused on the patterns of the energy, the rhythm of the pulses. "Observe first. Respond second," Lyra reminded him quietly. Elias inhaled deeply, studying the movement of the energy. Then, acting decisively, he led Lyra and the creatures along a safe path, carefully adjusting their steps to avoid danger. The fissure stabilized, the energy calmed, and the artifact pulsed brightly as if acknowledging his actions. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "This is what it values: thoughtful action under pressure. Courage, yes, but also care, observation, and judgment. Ordinary humans rarely understand how extraordinary these qualities are." Elias nodded, feeling both pride and humility. "I think I understand." "A little," he said. "It's not about being perfect. It's about being aware, about acting rightly when it matters most." Lyra smiled faintly. "Exactly. And now the final challenge begins." The ground beneath them trembled again, and the glowing tree, the core of the valley's energy, began to hum louder. Its roots extended, weaving a protective barrier around the creatures. Then the artifact's glow expanded, forming a dome around Elias and Lyra. Inside the dome, the air shimmered, and holographic figures appeared, simulations of humans, aliens, and creatures interacting in countless scenarios. "The artifact will now test your understanding of connection," Lyra explained. "It wants to see how you interact with life, how you respond to challenges, and whether you can act with both courage and empathy." Elias felt a surge of determination. He remembered the lessons of the past days, the instinct to protect, the patience to observe, the courage to act under pressure. He understood that this final test was about integrating all of these qualities. Suddenly, a simulated threat appeared, a massive, unpredictable creature, its energy surging violently. The creatures in the dome scattered, frightened and unsure of what to do. Elias's first instinct was to act, to protect, to guide. But he paused, observing the patterns of the creature's movements and the reactions of the smaller beings. Lyra watched him closely. "Do not act blindly. Let understanding guide your courage." Elias took a deep breath and moved forward carefully, his presence calm yet assertive. He did not attempt to attack the creature, nor did he force the smaller beings into safety. Instead, he guided them gently, creating paths for the frightened creatures to follow while maintaining a respectful distance from the larger being. The artifact pulsed brighter with each thoughtful decision. Elias could feel it resonating with him, responding to choices made with intention, care, and courage. He realized then that being human meant not simply surviving, but acting with awareness and heart. Minutes passed, and the dome's simulations shifted. The massive creature calmed, the smaller beings returned, and harmony was restored. The artifact's glow expanded further, washing over Elias and Lyra. The valley around them seemed to respond as well. The glowing tree's light pulsed in rhythm with the artifact. The fissures closed completely, and the energy of the planet settled into a steady, gentle hum. Lyra turned to Elias, her expression proud. You have demonstrated exactly what it seeks. Courage, empathy, understanding, judgment. You acted not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. That is what makes humans extraordinary. Elias felt a warmth in his chest, a mixture of pride, relief, and awe. He had acted instinctively, yes, but his instincts had been guided by observation, understanding, and care. The artifact had recognized these qualities, and in doing so, had shown him the extraordinary potential of humanity. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the valley calm around them, the artifact's glow soft but steady. Then Elias finally asked the question he had asked at the very beginning, a question that had weighed on him since his first encounter with Lyra. Why? Why would you want someone like me? Lyra smiled gently, her eyes meeting his. Because you're human, she said softly. And humans have a way of rising to the occasion when no one else can. It's not about skill or knowledge or perfection. It's about courage, empathy, and the ability to act rightly when it matters most. You have all of that, Elias, and that is why the artifact and I see you as someone remarkable. Elias felt a rush of emotions, relief, pride, and humility all at once. For the first time, he truly understood that his worth was not measured by victories or accolades, but by the choices he made, the care he showed, and the courage he displayed in moments that demanded it. The artifact pulsed one final time, its light enveloping the valley in a soft glow. Elias realized that humanity had been recognized not for perfection, but for its potential, the ability to act with heart, courage, and insight in ways no other species could predict. The artifact had recorded their success, marking humans as capable of greatness. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. Remember this, Elias. Ordinary humans can achieve extraordinary things. You've seen it now, and the artifact has seen it too. There is a place for humanity among the stars, not because of power or skill, but because of qualities that cannot be measured by any machine or intelligence. Elias nodded, feeling a calm certainty settle over him. He looked out at the valley below, the glowing trees, the creatures, and the artifact itself. A sense of purpose filled him, purpose that went beyond duty, beyond training, beyond any measure of skill. He understood now what it truly meant to be human. The shuttle lifted off, carrying them back to the space station. Elias stared at the shrinking valley, its glowing patterns fading into the distance. The artifact had completed its final test, and he had succeeded not through force, not through strategy, but through courage, empathy, and understanding. Lyra glanced at him, her expression calm and knowing. The artifact will remain here, observing, learning, and waiting. But it has already recognized humanity, and it has recognized you, Elias. Remember that. Elias smiled faintly. I will. And I'll remember why being human matters, in ways I never realized before. As the space station came into view, Elias felt a sense of completion, of understanding, and of hope. Humanity had been tested, challenged, and observed, and had risen to the occasion. He had been tested, challenged, and observed, and had discovered the extraordinary potential within himself. For the first time in his life, Elias felt truly seen, not just for what he could do, but for who he was. And Lyra's words, simple yet profound, echoed in his mind. Because you're human, and humans have a way of rising to the occasion when no one else can. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the station, a vast frontier full of mysteries, challenges, and possibilities. And somewhere deep inside, Elias knew that humanity, with its courage, empathy, and wisdom, was ready to meet them. The artifact had shown them the way. Humanity had proven its worth. And Elias understood finally that even ordinary humans could be extraordinary.